The mystery of time and the night, journey time, has always been one of the most fascinating mysteries for human beings. From the earliest civilizations, people have wondered whether time is fixed like an arrow that only moves forward, or whether it is flexible and can bend in extraordinary circumstances. Scientists today often describe time as a dimension woven together with space, something that can stretch, slow down, or speed up depending on certain forces in the universe. Yet long before modern science explored these questions, Islam had already introduced a miraculous event that seemed to challenge the very laws of time and space. This event is known as Isra and Miraj, the night journey of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. To understand this event properly, one must first understand the world in which it took place. The Prophet Muhammad lived in 7th century Arabia in the city of Mecca. Mecca at that time was filled with idol worship and tribal rivalries. The Kaaba, which was originally built by Prophet Ibrahim and his son Prophet Ismail as a house for the worship of the one true God, had been filled with hundreds of idols. In this environment, Prophet Muhammad stood as a lone voice, calling the people back to the worship of Allah alone. For 13 long years, he preached the message of monotheism, patience, compassion, and justice. Yet most of the people rejected him, mocked him, and persecuted him and his followers. By the time the event of Isra and Miraj occurred, the Prophet had gone through a period of deep sadness. His beloved wife Khadijah, who had been his support, comfort, and closest companion, had passed away. Shortly afterward, his uncle Abu Talib, who had protected him from the hostility of the Quraysh tribes, also died. Without these two figures, the Prophet faced greater opposition and cruelty than ever before. This year of grief is known in Islamic history as the Year of Sorrow. It was during this time of great difficulty that Allah blessed the Prophet with one of the most extraordinary miracles in human history. Late one night, as the Prophet rested near the Kaaba, the angel Jibril came to him with a special message. He was to be taken on a journey unlike any other, a journey that would transcend earthly limits and unveil the hidden realities of the heavens. The first part of this journey is called Isra, the night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem. The Prophet was carried on a magnificent steed known as Buraq, a creature described as larger than a donkey yet smaller than a mule, with wings that allowed it to travel at unimaginable speed. With Jibril guiding him, the Prophet mounted Buraq and in an instant found himself in Jerusalem. Hundreds of miles away from Mecca, in Jerusalem, the Prophet was taken to the sacred site known today as Masjid al-Aqsa. There, he found himself in the company of all the previous prophets of God. From Adam to Ibrahim to Musa and Isa, peace be upon them all. He led them in prayer, symbolizing his role as the final messenger and the completion of the chain of prophethood. But the most astonishing part of the journey was yet to come. After Isra came Miraj, the ascension to the heavens. With Jibril as his guide, the Prophet ascended through the different levels of the heavens. At each level, he met a different prophet and greeted them with peace. At the first heaven, he met Adam, the father of mankind. At the second, he met Isa and Yahya, who welcomed him warmly. At the third, he met Yusuf, known for his beauty and patience. At the fourth, he met Idris, a prophet raised to a high station. At the fifth, he met Harun, the brother of Musa. At the sixth, he met Musa himself. And at the seventh, he met Ibrahim, leaning against the Kaaba in the heavens. Each meeting carried a message, reminding the Prophet of the struggles and victories of those who came before him. The ascension symbolized not only a spiritual elevation, but also a continuation of the divine mission that had begun with Adam. Finally, the Prophet was taken to Sidrat al-Muntaha, the lote tree of the utmost boundary, beyond which none but Allah can pass. Even the angel Jibril remained behind, for he could not go further. At this exalted station, the Prophet stood in the divine presence and was honored with direct communication with Allah. Here, Allah prescribed the 5 daily prayers for the Muslim community. Originally, the number was 50, But after the prophet descended and consulted with Musa, who told him that the people would not be able to bear such a burden, he returned several times to ask Allah for a reduction. Finally, the prayers were reduced to 5. Yet Allah promised that their reward would be equal to 50. This showed the mercy of Allah and the importance of prayer as a direct connection between the believer and the Creator. The entire journey, from Mecca to Jerusalem to the highest heavens and back again, took place in a single night. When the Prophet returned and told the people of Mecca about it the next morning, many of them mocked him and rejected the story. They said it was impossible for a man to travel such a distance in one night, let alone ascend to the heavens. Yet those with true faith, such as Abu Bakr, accepted it without hesitation. When told of the Prophet's account, Abu Bakr simply said, "If Muhammad said it, then it is true." From that day on, he was given the title as Siddiq, the truthful one. For centuries, scholars and believers have reflected on Isra and Miraj. Some see it purely as a spiritual journey, while others affirm it as both physical and spiritual. What is beyond doubt is that the event defies normal human understanding of time and space. How could such vast distances and experiences occur in a single night without violating the natural order? This is where the question of time travel enters the discussion. Modern science has shown that time is not absolute. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time can move differently depending on speed and gravity. An object moving close to the speed of light experiences time much more slowly than an object at rest. This means that under certain circumstances, what seems like hours or days to one observer may be only moments to another. Could Isra and Miraj be an example of this? Was the Prophet taken through a dimension where time flowed differently, allowing him to witness the wonders of the heavens in what seemed like a single night? Was Buraq not merely an animal, but a vehicle capable of transcending space and time itself? These questions show that the miracle of Isra and Miraj is not only a matter of faith, but also a subject that continues to fascinate the human mind in the age of science. Yet it is important to remember that miracles are not bound by human laws. While science can offer glimpses into how such an event might be possible, the reality of the Prophet's journey was a gift from Allah, who is not bound by the limits of time or space. For believers, the significance lies not in the mechanics of the journey, but in its message. It was a reassurance to the Prophet in his time of sorrow, a sign of his special status among creation, and a reminder to all Muslims of the importance of prayer and steadfastness. In this way, Isra and Miraj is not just a story of the past. It is a continuing reminder that time and space are in the hands of Allah, and that faith can take us beyond the limits of this world. The night journey invites us to reflect on the mysteries of existence, the purpose of our lives, and the infinite power of the Creator who can turn the impossible into reality. This was only the beginning of the miraculous tale, a story that links the mysteries of time travel with the spiritual truths of Islam. In the next part, we will dive deeper into how scholars, philosophers, and scientists have interpreted this journey, and how it relates to modern discussions about the nature of time, space, and reality. The debate of time and the miraculous journey, the story of Isra and Miraj did not end on that miraculous night. In fact, the journey sparked questions and debates that continue even today. For the early Muslims, it was a test of faith. Those whose hearts were filled with belief accepted the Prophet's words without hesitation, while those who doubted used the story as an excuse to reject him further. This division between faith and disbelief was not new, but Isra and Miraj magnified it. The journey also opened up profound discussions about the nature of time, reality, and divine power. When the Prophet described what he had seen, people mocked him, saying it was impossible for any man to travel from Mecca to Jerusalem and back in a single night. To them, the physical world was rigid and unchangeable. Yet the Prophet gave them proofs. He described in detail the caravans he had passed on the way, the conditions of their camels, and the exact moment they would arrive in Mecca, when the caravans arrived exactly as he described. It silenced some, though many still refused to believe. Their denial was not because of lack of evidence, but because of pride and stubbornness. The companions of the Prophet, however, understood that miracles are not subject to human limitations. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq set the perfect example. His faith was not dependent on logic alone, but on trust in the Prophet and the truth of divine revelation. For him, if Allah willed something, then it was possible, no matter how extraordinary. As the Muslim community grew and centuries passed, scholars began to explore Isra and Miraj in more detail. Some explained it as a purely spiritual experience, while others affirmed it as both physical and spiritual. The majority view in Islamic tradition holds that it was a real, physical journey, because the Prophet described actual places, people, and events. He did not speak of it as a dream, but as something he experienced with his body and soul. The question of how such a journey was possible led many scholars to reflect on the nature of time. In ordinary human life, time appears linear and limited. A person is born, grows old, and dies. Moments pass in a straight line, one after the other. But Isra and Miraj seem to break this pattern. How could the Prophet travel across vast distances, ascend through the heavens, meet generations of prophets, and return all in the span of a single night? Some scholars explain that Allah, being the creator of time, is not bound by it. Just as he created the heavens and the earth, he also created time itself. For Allah, past, present, and future are all known and accessible. When he wills a miracle, time can expand, contract, or even pause. To Allah, nothing is impossible. Thus, the miracle of Isra and Miraj was not a violation of natural law, but rather a demonstration that natural law itself is under the control of the Creator. Others turned to philosophy to explain the event. Islamic philosophers such as Al-Ghazali and Ibn Sina wrote about time and existence. They argued that human perception of time is limited, but in the unseen realm, time does not move in the same way. What seems like a second in one realm could feel like hours or days in another. This idea connects closely with the experience of Isra and Miraj, where a single night contained countless events and encounters. Interestingly, modern science has developed theories that echo these ideas. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, for example, shows that time is not absolute. Time moves differently depending on speed and gravity. A person traveling near the speed of light would experience time more slowly than someone on Earth. This phenomenon is called time dilation. In theory, a traveler moving at extreme speeds could witness days or years pass on Earth while experiencing only hours themselves. If we consider this in light of Isra and Miraj, it becomes easier to imagine how the Prophet could witness so much in such a short span. The journey may have taken him through realms where time flowed differently, or perhaps Allah simply suspended ordinary time for him. While science may provide models that resemble the miracle ultimately, the event remains beyond full human understanding. Another fascinating point is the description of Al-Buraq, the steed that carried the Prophet. Some scholars interpreted Al-Buraq as a literal creature created by Allah for this special purpose. Others suggested that it symbolizes a form of travel that transcends earthly limits. Its incredible speed is described as being able to place its hoof as far as the eye can see, which hints at instantaneous movement. In modern terms, it resembles concepts of teleportation or faster-than-light travel, ideas that scientists still only theorize about today. But Isra and Miraj is not merely about scientific possibility. Its deeper meaning lies in the spiritual lessons it offers. When the Prophet met the earlier prophets, it symbolized the unity of all divine messages. From Adam to Ibrahim to Musa to Isa, all prophets carried the same core message: worship Allah alone and live righteously. By leading them in prayer, Muhammad affirmed his role as the seal of prophethood, completing the chain of revelation. The ascension also reminded humanity of the unseen realities that lie beyond this world. The prophet was shown the beauty of paradise and the torment of those who rejected faith. These visions were not meant to entertain, but to guide. They remind believers of the consequences of their choices and the eternal reality that awaits after death. At Sidrat al-Muntaha, the prophet reached a station beyond which no creation could go. This symbolizes the ultimate closeness to Allah, a closeness not measured in distance, but in spiritual nearness. The gift of prayer that came from this meeting is perhaps the greatest lesson of Isra and Miraj. Prayer is described as the ascension of the believer, a way for ordinary humans to connect with the divine daily. Just as the prophet ascended through the heavens, every believer can spiritually ascend through sincere prayer, drawing closer to Allah. When we consider the journey as a whole, it becomes clear that it is both a miracle and a message. It shows that the limits of time and space are not barriers for Allah. It teaches that faith requires trust beyond what the eyes can see. And it emphasizes that prayer is the key to maintaining a relationship with the Creator. The story also provides comfort for those facing hardship. Remember that the prophet experienced Isra and Miraj after one of the most difficult years of his life. In the depths of grief and rejection, Allah granted him a vision of the highest honor and closeness. This teaches us that hardship can be followed by relief, and sorrow can be replaced with joy. For believers struggling in their own lives, the story of Isra and Miraj is a reminder of hope, patience, and trust in Allah's plan. As the centuries rolled on, Muslims around the world continued to celebrate and reflect on Isra and Miraj. The journey was not only remembered in books and sermons, but also in art, poetry, and architecture. Many Muslim cultures developed traditions to honor the night of Miraj, using it as a time of prayer and remembrance. While some focused on the miracle itself, others used the occasion to reflect on their own spiritual journeys, asking themselves whether they were fulfilling the purpose of prayer and devotion. In their daily lives, the idea of time travel in Islam is often raised in modern times because the journey so clearly challenges the ordinary flow of time. For some, it becomes a way to show that Islam already acknowledged truths that science is only beginning to discover. For others, it is a reminder that faith is not dependent on scientific approval. Whether or not science explains it, the miracle stands as a sign of divine power. Thus, the debate of time and Isra and Miraj continues. Was it time travel in the modern sense? Was it a suspension of earthly laws? Or was it something far beyond human imagination? The truth may be a combination of all these, or something entirely different. What matters most is the message. Allah is capable of all things, and through faith, humans can transcend the limits of this world. The next part of this story will explore how this journey connects to wider discussions about science, spirituality, and the unseen. We will look at how Isra and Miraj inspires both believers and seekers, and how it continues to shape the relationship between faith and reason in our modern world. Science, faith, and the hidden dimensions of time. As the story of Isra and Miraj spread across the Muslim world, it became one of the most profound miracles narrated in Islamic history. Generations of scholars, poets, and thinkers drew lessons from it, not only about the greatness of the prophet, but also about the mysteries of creation. Over time, new questions began to emerge. What exactly does this journey tell us about the nature of the universe? How does it relate to what we know today about time, space, and reality? Could this miracle be described in terms that resemble the modern idea of time travel? These questions continue to inspire curiosity in both religious and scientific minds. To begin with, it is important to recognize that the Quran itself hints at the flexible nature of time. In several verses, Allah mentions that a day with Him is like 1,000 years of human calculation, while in another verse it is compared to 50,000 years. This shows that time as humans experience it is not the same as divine time. The Isra and Miraj fits within this understanding because it suggests that what might take ages in human terms can happen in an instant by the will of Allah. Modern physics offers striking parallels to this concept. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity revolutionized the way humans understand time. According to relativity, time is not fixed, but relative depending on speed and gravity. If a person were to travel near the speed of light, time for them would slow down compared to those left behind on Earth. This means that two people could live through very different amounts of time, even though they eventually meet again. Scientists call this time dilation, and it has been proven through experiments with atomic clocks placed on fast-moving jets. If one reflects on Isra and Miraj, it seems to follow a similar principle, though at a level far beyond human technology. The Prophet traveled across vast distances through realms beyond ordinary experience, yet returned within the same night. It suggests that Allah, who created the laws of physics, can suspend or bend them whenever He wills. To the people of Mecca, it appeared impossible, but from the perspective of divine power, it was simply a matter of will. In addition to relativity, modern science speaks of the possibility of multiple dimensions. Physicists exploring theories such as string theory suggest that the universe may have more than the three dimensions of space and one of time that humans perceive. There could be hidden dimensions beyond human senses. The Miraj seems to hint at such realities because the Prophet ascended beyond the physical universe to levels of existence that ordinary human beings cannot access. Each heaven he passed through could be seen as a higher dimension of reality, a reminder that what humans perceive is only a fraction of creation. Furthermore, some scientists explore the idea of wormholes, tunnels through space and time that could connect distant places instantly. Though this remains theoretical, it is fascinating to note that Buraq carried the Prophet in a way that resembles such travel. In moments, he covered distances that would normally take months. It is as if the barriers of time and space were removed, allowing him to experience realities that ordinary humans cannot. However, while these scientific comparisons are interesting, Muslims understand that the event was not dependent on natural laws. It was a miracle granted by Allah to honor His messenger. The scientific ideas may help modern readers appreciate the possibility of such an event, but they cannot capture its full reality. Miracles, by definition, surpass ordinary explanation. The Isra and Miraj is not meant to be reduced to equations, but to strengthen faith and inspire reflection on the greatness of the Creator beyond science. The spiritual meaning of the journey is even more important. The Prophet was shown the reality of heaven and hell. He saw the rewards prepared for the righteous and the punishments for those who disbelieved or committed grave sins. These visions were not mere stories, but living truths that he witnessed with his own eyes. They served as guidance for his followers, reminding them that this world is temporary and the hereafter is eternal. The 5 daily prayers were established as the most lasting gift of that night. Prayer is described as the ascension of the believer, a way for each Muslim to experience a spiritual journey toward Allah. Just as the Prophet ascended through the heavens during Miraj, believers ascend spiritually through sincere worship. This shows that the miracle was not only for the Prophet but also for his community. It linked them directly to the divine presence through prayer. Throughout Islamic history, this lesson has been emphasized by scholars and mystics. The Sufis, for example, often spoke of prayer and remembrance of Allah as a personal ascension. Through devotion, they believed the soul could rise above worldly distractions and draw nearer to the Creator. In this sense, Isra and Miraj is not only a historical event but also a living reality, experienced by believers every day when they stand in prayer. The event also highlights the unity of all prophets and their messages. When the Prophet led the earlier prophets in prayer at Masjid al-Aqsa, it showed that Islam is not a new religion, but the continuation and completion of the same truth that Allah revealed to all His messengers. This moment symbolized that all prophets are connected and that Muhammad is the final link in the chain. In a world where religions often seem divided, this lesson is powerful. It reminds humanity that the core message has always been one and the same: to worship Allah alone and live righteously. For Muslims today, the story of Isra and Miraj remains a source of hope and strength. Life is filled with struggles and hardships, just as the Prophet faced during the year of sorrow. At such times, the journey reminds believers that Allah's mercy is greater than any difficulty. If Allah can take His servant beyond the limits of the universe in a single night, then surely He can ease the burdens of those who call upon Him. It also encourages humility. No matter how much science advances, humans will never fully grasp the mysteries of creation. The Miraj shows that reality extends far beyond what can be measured by instruments or described in formulas. It teaches that faith is not opposed to reason, but it transcends reason. Faith accepts that the Creator is greater than His creation and that some truths can only be known through revelation. In the modern world, people are often fascinated by science fiction stories of time travel. Films and novels imagine characters moving through the past or future, altering history or exploring new dimensions. Yet more than 14 centuries ago, Islam presented a real event that surpasses any fictional tale. The Isra and Miraj is not fantasy but divine reality, witnessed by the greatest of mankind. It shows that what humans dream about in stories, Allah has already made possible in truth. This connection between science and faith can be a powerful bridge for seekers. For someone who admires science, the story demonstrates that Islam embraces curiosity and reflection about the universe. For someone who seeks spiritual truth, it shows that ultimate answers lie not in human theories, but in the revelation of the Creator. In both ways, the miracle invites humanity to recognize the greatness of Allah and the truth of His messenger. The continuing relevance of Isra and Miraj lies in its timeless lessons. It shows that prayer is the key to spiritual ascension. It teaches that hardship can lead to divine relief. It reminds that time and space are under Allah's command and not barriers for Him, and it points to the eternal reality of the hereafter, which should shape how people live their lives in this world. In the next part, we will explore how Isra and Miraj has influenced Islamic civilization over the centuries and how it continues to inspire Muslims across the globe. We will also reflect on what this miracle means for the modern believer and how it answers some of the deepest questions about purpose, destiny, and human existence. The eternal lessons of Isra and Miraj. The story of Isra and Miraj did not remain confined to the 7th century. It has lived on through every generation of Muslims, shaping their understanding of faith, destiny, and the mysteries of the universe. More than a miraculous journey, it became a guiding light for how believers approach life, prayer, and their relationship with Allah. To complete this story, it is important to see how the event has influenced Islamic civilization and what timeless lessons it continues to offer to the modern world. From the earliest days of Islam, the night journey was remembered with awe and reverence. Scholars preserved its details in hadith collections, ensuring that every stage of the event would be known by future generations. Mosques and schools across the Muslim world taught children about the Prophet's journey so that they would understand the greatness of their messenger. The memory of Isra and Miraj thus became part of the spiritual identity of Muslims. In architecture and art, the event inspired creativity. The Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, built in the 1st century of Islam, stands as a lasting symbol of the place where the Prophet ascended. Its golden dome and intricate calligraphy remind visitors of the connection between earth and heaven that was made possible on that night. Poets also celebrated the journey, describing the beauty of Buraq, the majesty of the heavens, and the honor given to the Prophet. For centuries, the night of Miraj became a source of inspiration not just for theologians, but also for artists, philosophers, and ordinary believers. The story also influenced Islamic spirituality, for the Sufi tradition Isra and Miraj represented not only a historical event, but also a model of the spiritual path. They described the human soul as capable of rising through stages of closeness to Allah, just as the Prophet rose through the heavens. Through prayer, fasting, remembrance, and purification of the heart, believers could experience their own journey toward the divine. This teaching gave depth to everyday worship, reminding Muslims that every act of devotion is part of a greater spiritual ascent. For ordinary Muslims, the greatest gift of the journey remains the 5 daily prayers. These prayers are not just rituals, but moments of direct connection with Allah. When a believer stands in prayer, they are in fact repeating the very command that Allah gave to the Prophet on that night at Sidrat al-Muntaha. In this way, each prayer becomes a reminder of the miraculous meeting between Allah and His Messenger. This is why prayer is described as the ascension of the believer, because it lifts the soul beyond worldly concerns and brings it closer to its Creator. Another important lesson of Isra and Miraj is patience in the face of hardship. The Prophet experienced this journey at a time of deep sorrow. He had lost his wife and protector and faced constant hostility from his people. Yet in that moment of despair, Allah honored him with the greatest vision any human has ever experienced. This teaches believers that after hardship comes ease, and that Allah's mercy can transform grief into joy. Whenever Muslims face trials in life, they can find hope in remembering that their Prophet was lifted from sorrow to glory in a single night. The story also emphasizes the unity of prophethood. When the Prophet led all the earlier prophets in prayer, it symbolized that his message was the continuation of theirs. Islam was not a new invention, but the completion of the same truth that Adam, Ibrahim, Musa, and Isa had preached. This unity remains a powerful reminder in a world often divided by religion. It calls humanity to see beyond differences and to recognize the single thread of divine guidance that runs through all the prophets. In the modern age, the story of Isra and Miraj takes on new meaning as people search for answers to questions about time, space, and destiny. Science has advanced to the point where theories of relativity, multiple dimensions, and time dilation are seriously discussed. These ideas echo what believers already accept from faith, that time and space are not fixed but flexible, and that greater realities exist beyond human perception. For Muslims, the miracle of Isra and Miraj shows that Allah's knowledge and power surpass anything human science can uncover. Science may explain possibilities, but Allah has already shown the reality. At the same time, the story offers guidance for those caught in the distractions of modern life. People today are often overwhelmed by technology, work, and material desires. Prayer and remembrance can be neglected. The night journey reminds them that true success lies not in wealth or status, but in closeness to Allah. Just as the Prophet ascended beyond the world, believers too must rise above worldly distractions through devotion. Each prayer becomes a chance to step away from the noise of life and experience peace with the Creator. Another lesson is the certainty of the hereafter. The Prophet was shown paradise and hell with his own eyes. He saw the joy of the righteous and the torment of the wicked. These visions serve as a warning and a promise. They remind every soul that this life is temporary and that every action will be accounted for. In a world where many doubt or deny the afterlife, Isra and Miraj stands as a testimony from the one who witnessed it directly. The miracle also answers the deep human longing for purpose. Many people wonder why they exist and where they are going. The night journey gives a clear answer. Human beings were created to worship Allah and to journey toward Him. Life is not meaningless, but a test and a path. Just as the Prophet traveled from earth to the heavens, every believer is on a journey from this world to the hereafter. The destination is either eternal joy or eternal regret, depending on the choices made in this life. Perhaps the most shocking truth of Isra and Miraj, when viewed through the lens of time travel, is that it shows how human limitations are not the final measure of reality. To the people of Mecca, the prophet's story seemed impossible because they judged it by their own experience of time and distance. Yet Allah revealed that His power is beyond such limits. In doing so, He reminded humanity that their understanding of reality is small compared to the vastness of creation. The event thus serves as a call to humility. For Muslims today, remembering Isra and Miraj is not only about marveling at the miracle, but also about living its lessons. It means being steadfast in prayer, seeing hardship as a step toward divine mercy, uniting with others in faith, and never losing sight of the eternal reality. It also means being open to reflection and learning, recognizing that science may uncover hints of truths that Allah has already revealed, but that faith will always be the ultimate guide. The story of Isra and Miraj is therefore more than history. It is a living sign of Allah's power and mercy. It is a reminder that the universe is far greater than what humans can measure. It is a call to prayer, patience, humility, and faith. And it is a promise that just as the prophet was lifted from sorrow to divine closeness, so too can believers find light after darkness, if they turn sincerely to Allah. Thus, the question of time travel in Islam finds its answer in this miracle. The journey of the prophet shows that Allah, who created time, can bend it or suspend it at will. It shows that what seems impossible to humans is simple for the Creator. And it shows that the real purpose of life is not to master time, but to use the time given to draw closer to Allah. In the end, the shocking truth of Isra and Miraj is not merely about breaking the laws of physics, but about breaking the barriers of the heart. It calls every believer to rise above doubt and distraction, and to make their own journey through prayer, faith, and devotion. For just as the prophet ascended through the heavens, every believer has the chance to ascend spiritually toward the Creator, who awaits with mercy and reward.